This is Kelly Hill, technology reporter for RCR Wireless News. I'm here today with two of the co-founders of Twin Prime, Kartik Chandrayana and Satish Raghunath. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hi, Kelly. How are you?
Hi. Good. How are you? Great. Now, you folks are the leaders of a very young company. You just came out of stealth mode a couple of weeks ago. You have a Series A funding round that's just completed. And I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit about the company, and then we'll start to maybe address some of the things that you folks see as the problems that you're trying to solve in the ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. Good talking to you. The biggest medium for communication today, accessing the internet today, is the mobile phone. And if you look at mobile has a performance problem. We are spending close to 3 hours per day on our mobile phones. It's more than we spend on television. And almost all of that time is spent inside apps. And if you look inside apps, they are 3 times slower than the web. So now imagine how much we are making our users wait when we basically put out apps. We are basically asking them to wait for like 10, 15, 20 minutes per day just for the content to load. And mobile is quickly becoming our first screen. And in places like India and China, it is default the first screen. Like, I mean, India is completely skipping the PC and the cable and everything. They're just going to the mobile first world. So in this world, the problem to be solved is like, how do we basically make sure that the mobile apps are engaging, they are responsive, they are basically keeping the users, because users have a very fickle mind these days. Like, if I open up my Walmart app and I don't see the object which I'm looking for, I'll go and probably search it on Target, Amazon. I have choices. So you do not want that as a business to basically have a slower and unresponsive app. And the current solutions are not solving for that problem. And that's why we started the Twin Prime company for.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your approach. Now, I noticed that it says on your website that this doesn't involve caching, compressing, or modifying data, and instead you use something called automated hypothesis testing framework, or AHT. Can you tell us a little bit about how that works?
Satish?
Yeah. So the key insight that we've had with mobile on how it's different from what we've seen in the desktop or PC world is that there is an incredible amount of volatility and diversity in this network, be it in terms of the physics of the channel, the contention, congestion, interference, and so on, or in the incredible number of devices and operators and network types that we access our content on. And the approach we chose was to say, hey, look, the content is not the problem here. People are going to keep accessing richer content and more content. Really, the issue is how we deal with this volatility and diversity. And that's where AHT comes in, which really says that detect what are the factors that affect each individual mobile user's performance and pick the optimization strategies in real time in response to those mobile contexts with some instruction from historical data. That's really what AHT is. It's about being adaptive. It's about being cognizant of the changing mobile network.
So one way to think about this is like, this is something, an intuitive explanation which all of us have, that if I take my mobile phone and I move around with it, we will see different performance. It's a different performance at home, it's a different performance at work, San Francisco, New York, swap out your operators, AT&T versus Verizon, Android phone versus iOS phones. There's a lot of these dimensions. So we know this for a fact as mobile users. So we also know that if the performance is going to be different in different places, the same optimization strategy is not going to work for all of these use cases. What we need to do is pay attention to the environment from where the phone is being used or the app is being used. Now, there will be a specific set of optimizations which works very well for a user on an AT&T's LTE network in San Francisco. And there will be a separate thing which will work for like a Verizon Chicago Android phone. So it's like, so AHT helps us basically cull out all these scenarios and environments and tell us like what are the right strategies and optimization frameworks we should be looking at for how the users are using the app.
And so I gather it also says on your website that that you guys aren't. It's not. This is not a matter of hosting. This is not a content delivery network framework. Can you talk a little bit about being complementary to CDNs?
Yeah. So if you look at the desktop, or let me just start over there. In the early days of the web, what was happening was that you probably had just one Yahoo servers and in Sunnyvale, and your users were accessing the content all across the world. So the content had to go closer to the users, and that was a first mile problem. That you just had a huge first mile latency, and content distribution is basically what CDN ended up solving really well. And then they added on to it by with scaling and adding more functionalities to it so that you have dynamic load balancing and you can basically scale to like different kinds of load structures and all that stuff. Now with mobile, everything changed. The scaling questions didn't change, the hosting questions didn't change, but the performance problem changed. The almost all the latency, the time you spend waiting for content is spent in the wireless last mile. That's the link between your device and the access point. The access point could be the cell tower, it could be the Wi-Fi access point. I mean, it's one of the reasons why sometimes we see 5 bars on our phone and then still nothing gets done. Right? So it's like the problem has shifted to the wireless last mile. And that is a place where you need to do much more intelligent stuff, pay attention to your environment. And that's what we are focusing on. That's what Twin Prime looks at, like last mile optimization. And CDNs continue to play the part of distributing the content, staging the content, because once you go past the access point, you're on the rich part of the internet. Going to a CDN or any other hosting provider to get the content is like barely few milliseconds, 5 to 10, 15 milliseconds. But if you look at the last mile, that's where 70, 80% of the end latency is.
Okay. And so your solution, is it a network-based solution? Is it a device-based solution? Can you tell me a little bit more about what it actually consists of?
Yeah, so right now the approach we have taken is the one that is simplest for our customers, enterprises that have mobile apps that they want to make faster, and that is deployed in the way of an SDK, like a library that fits in the app that customers just push it out to the App Store. There's very little they change in the way they build their apps or the way they do their code. It's just a one-line thing. They just put it in and push it out, and the SDK automatically talks to our cloud backend. The customer is not really doing anything special. They're not changing their backend for that. So it's a very simple deployment model.
Yeah. So all our customers have to do is basically integrate the SDK. It takes like a few minutes to integrate the SDK. Minimal code changes. You pretty much have to just initialize the SDK, and that's about it. Nothing changes inside the app or anything that much more. And we just seamlessly work with whatever infrastructure you have in place. Like if you're using a particular CDN, we'll actually continue working with that CDN. If you have your own data center, it actually works with that.
Now, I did a special report a couple of months ago on content delivery in mobile networks, and one of the things that I came across pretty frequently was this this issue of digital rights management and the fact that there's not very much a content provider can do when you're working with DRM content in terms of being able to optimize that content. And it sounds like you folks kind of automatically take that into consideration. Does it really make a difference what type of content it is, or how it's protected?
That's a great point. I mean, the reason why we built our solution to be content agnostic is to really tackle these kinds of scenarios where we cannot do anything with the content. DRM content means everything is encrypted. We cannot change it, we cannot host it, we cannot cache it. How do you make it faster? By looking at the network part of the problem, right? So it definitely works with that kind of a scenario. And that's really one of the design goals of this whole framework.
Yeah. So one of the theses which we have is that we are in this very, very innovative phase of mobile. And a lot of different forms of content, devices, all of these things which will keep on coming. So, and keeping pace with something which is moving much faster than you becomes much, much harder. So if you can take that out as a startup, that you can actually keep pace, that's why we took out content and said, like, we'll do something which works for all kinds of content.
Okay. Now, can you tell me a little bit about the types of companies that you're targeting as customers? You mentioned enterprises that want to speed up their apps. I saw you have a couple of case studies on your website for a social media app, for example. Can you tell me who your target market is?
So the target market is pretty broad. Like speed is something which everybody needs, right? If you go and ask people, like, what do you want? Cheaper, faster, better. so the faster part is always true. So even though it applies to everybody, like we have basically segmented it in like 5 or 6 verticals. So social and media apps, think of it as any consumer apps which are there, which are not games, is one big vertical for us. So these are like photo sharing apps like Instagrams, or the front back which we basically have in our as a case study, or Tinders of the world and so the Flipboards of the world. These are the set of those companies. The second set is commerce. And when we say commerce, think of any app where there is a credit card transaction happening. So these are the retail apps like Amazon and Walmart. These are also the travel and hospitality apps like Kayak and Priceline and such. And then the ticketing apps as well, Eventbrite and Ticketmaster and all these other apps. Advertising networks are a very big vertical for us. Right now, they lose a lot of their advertisements because they never make it to the end device. And for them, eyeballs is everything. So advertising is a big vertical. Then you have enterprise B2B applications. Like think of Salesforce One. I mean, it's hardly ever we actually use it from our desktop. Which we are always mobile, like anybody who's entering and doing anything. So like B2B applications are a big play for us. Streaming of any kind, audio or video, is another big vertical for us. So that's the fifth vertical. And the sixth is game. So out of these three, right now we are primarily focused on the commerce apps, the consumer apps, and the advertising networks.
And I saw that in those case studies, you had some pretty significant numbers in terms of speed gains, anywhere from 30 to 200%, or around, I think you cited numbers of about 2 seconds per image in terms of download speeds?
Yes. So good. So that's the promise of our technology, right? Because once you solve for the real problem, and the real problem happens to be the wireless last mile, you can actually get these kind of gains in today's network. Almost all the inefficiency in the network is coming because our servers, our clients, they are not able to adapt to the clip at which the wireless last mile characteristics keep on changing. And that's why, and that's also one of the reasons why I cannot give you one number that it's going to be 50% faster or 70% faster. It's always going to be a range, because we get a different number in US, we get a different number in India and China. So by the way, we have like 20 points of presence. We are in like almost every country in China right now, which will be on the road. And we have seen great numbers across all geographies on large volumes of customers. And in the case of Runback, what we saw was that once the app became faster, their users were spending more time in the app. Their users were spending up to 50% more time in the app. And that's the promise of speed, that if you give your users what they want, they will get more stuff done, they'll spend more time in the app, and they're going to talk more about it. So your acquisition, retention strategies all starts with like when engaging in a fast app.
Okay. So that seems like some pretty clear benefits for the folks who are using the apps, or the folks who distribute the apps. Are there benefits for the mobile network operators as well, in terms of network efficiency, etc.?
Yeah, that's really a technical benefit of this approach, in the sense that what we're really helping the apps and the app ecosystem in doing is read the network right and use the most efficient strategies to use the network, right? Which means that the mobile operators will see increasing efficiencies with more apps going on Twin Prime. And at some point, we would probably work with the operators and say that, hey, look, so many of your customers are benefiting from this, and you can benefit from this directly as well.
Okay, great. So you guys just got started in terms of coming out of stealth mode. What's next for you? That sounds like it's probably a busy time.
It is a busy time. I mean, it's been like a great launch. Some like great conversations are happening with customers. New conversations are happening with a lot of customers, a lot of new customers. So as you can imagine, like the startup is all about growth. So it's like investing in growth in whatever forms. Like these are new customer conversations, ramping up on the hiring side, doing a lot of stuff on the customer success side, making sure we are basically keep on innovating in basically whatever we are doing. Like on the performance side, download is one part of it. How do we basically go and handle the upstream optimizations as well, like uploads and such? How do we basically go and do different forms of content? Like if we knew that it was an audio streaming, can we do more than what we actually know right now? So lots of interesting things, and that's what we are basically working on, like a mix of R&D, sales, marketing, customer success. It's busy times.
Okay. Great. Well, thanks for taking the time out to talk with us. I've been talking with Kartik Chandrayana and Satish Raghunath of Twin Prime. Thank you, gentlemen, so much.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. Good talking to you.
Good talking to you. Thank you very much.
Bye.